Talking about the market update in Boise, and is the Boise housing market going to crash? What do you think? We're going to talk all about that. We're going to dive into numbers. We're going to talk about economists. We're going to talk about studies. We're going to talk about the media. We're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about you guys moving here and if it's a good buy or not. Many people want to know, is this market going to crash? Is now a good time to buy? Let's dive into all that. Again, to remind you kind of the ground rules of who I am, what we're doing here. I am Brian Hymas, realtor in the Boise Valley. I've been a realtor for the last almost 6 years, been the last 5 years, and appraiser before that. Born and raised in Boise, Idaho. Love this gig. It's fun, especially doing things like this where you guys get to chime in. And that's where your role comes in. So I'm going to talk about all about the market. Your job is to come in with questions. And usually that's the easy part for you guys because you guys have different angles and different spins on things. If you've been here before, maybe your questions have been answered before. But I'm going to turn my focus on here so I get uninterrupted time. I probably hope the same for you guys. I'm not competing with Monday Night Football tonight. So bring your best questions. I'll bring my best answers, and we'll talk about all about the market. And if this is a market that is destined for a crash, well, let us dive right into it. So, if you have any real estate needs, guys, this is all part of the fun. You can reach me, call me, text me, email me anytime. If you don't want to put your questions on live here, I am available 24/7, 24/6. I take Sundays off for God and family. 1 day a week I get, but other than that, it's a 24/7 gig, if you will. So, let's talk about the Boise market. Is it going to crash? Now, why does this question come up? Let's rewind back to June of this year. So we're sitting around a family reunion, Island Park, and my sister-in-law from Colorado says something like to the effect of, "Oh, Boise market's overvalued." I said, "Oh, what makes you say that?" And just like most people, article wasn't read, headline was, and it's like, "Oh, Boise's overvalued." What is overvalued? Overvalued is when someone is willing to pay more for something than it's really worth, right? So if you buy a home, and again, the two rules of buying a home that you like what? The house and the payment. If you like those two things, you're good to go. It does not matter if you have equity in the house or if you're upside down in the house. If you make 200 grand a year between you and your spouse, let's say, and you have $4,000 payment, and now your jobs are secure, your payments are good, you like the home, you're still making 200 grand a month. Does it really matter? Right? The people who lose are who? First time home buyers or reentry buyers. If you try to time the market and you're trying to get back in, you might be struggling. So we talk about overvalued. Why did Boise get so much value? This is something I've repeatedly harped on my channel over and over and over and over and over again. What has been the big push with Boise? 7 years ago, you could buy the median home price in Eagle was 350, 400,000, somewhere in there. Now it hovers around $900,000, give or take $50,000. Why? So why the difference? We have seen supply and demand. Supply and demand will always actually be the only answer there is. All these other factors just play into supply and demand, right? When the demand on Boise rose, what was the demand rising for? Was it the home prices? Was it the interest rates? Partly. You can definitely make a case for interest rates, right? Um, what, and then also was it Boise's beaches? Heck no. Keep people from California. We're not moving here for the beaches. Ski resorts? I mean, we have some okay ones around town. We have within 3 hours, we have I think 5 or something. That's great, but that's not the reason people are moving here, right? Um, People are moving to Boise because they're probably like-minded like you and I, and they want to be in a good area where Big Brother is not watching over their back the whole time, right? They want a little bit more breathing room. They want a little bit more freedom, and that's why they choose Idaho. The prices have gone up. One thing to note with supply and demand is, has the pay from employers kept up? Huge question I get all the time, and that's one thing we should talk about. Is you should be very aware of. If your pay has not kept up with the housing market, then that's one thing. But if you had a job in Idaho while the home prices by your equity was rising, does that topic of conversation matter to you? I would argue, no, it does not. There are far bigger factors that play into that than just comparing your equity to the rise in the market because you've already benefited from that. You can move in, you can now buy and sell in the same market, and you can still have the same amount of equity if you bought the same price of house. If you need to upgrade, you can take a bigger chunk of that equity and put it as a down payment. So those just a couple thoughts for you real quick off the top of the bat. So is Boise's market overvalued, or are we going to crash, or are we going to balloon, or are we going to burst? I would love to hear if you guys are thinking it's going to do that, because from what I see is that we have a high demand on this place because of the way of life. My neighbor across the street is from California, and who's there, we'll get you in a sec. And same thing, moved here, fire and policemen. They're working their 10 days there straight, and then they come back and have 20 days off, or whatever the time frame is, like 10 on, 5 off, 10 on. I can't remember what it is, but that's very common because people are taking advantage of the lifestyle, raising their kids here because this is where they want to raise their kids, and then enjoying those jobs in California. Does that work for them? Sure. There are some things that they get hosed on that we don't, right? Plane tickets, time, etc. It's worth it to them though. So keep that in mind. Are we overvalued? Always going to depend on who's willing to pay what price. Now, if we look at specific stats, let's dive into some stats. Actually, let's before we go to stats, let's go to who's there. If my state still allows for gas-powered cars in California, then I will really consider moving to Idaho, my own private Idaho. Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. I love that we're having water right issues, we're having power issues, but heck, let's make a mandate that we have electric cars, right? Should be interesting how that plays out. I would say, man, buy real estate in Idaho now, because in 10 years that's going to be crazy here. There's going to be a gold. You think there's a bust on a booming bust on a modern day gold rush on Idaho right now? As one, I think it was Fortune 500 that said that. I have this Fortune 500 article right here pulled up. I don't have it. Anyway, Boise was voted the best place to live for millennials, and the best livability as well. So two places that added Boise is the best place to live. It really doesn't matter what those two news outlets say. I would venture to say that any news outlet, if you're spreading news, you've got an agenda, and you really have to be careful. Like when a realtor says the market's going up, only up, 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 up. That's all I'm saying. Careful. That my slant is my slant. I read economists, I read realtors, I see the market trends, I see supply and demand, and I have rose-colored glasses on. I will admit it. I'm not sure everyone would. I admit that I have rose-colored glasses on this market and what we're going to see moving forward. Now, am I pulling anyone's leg? No, I'm dead serious. That's what I truly believe down to the core, because that is what I see every day. My phone is still from people just like you trying to get up here from California, Washington, Oregon. Those three states are keeping me in business. So I tend to think that our market's going to be just fine. Especially, you've seen a lot of builders right now pull their lots and their construction permits out. They're not going to be building right now. What's that going to do to resale homes when those homes could have been hitting the market and interest rates possibly dip? Anyway, but let's dive into some real stats as we go into. First of all, let's talk about one stat that we should talk about before going into any of the stats about how many homes are listed and things is the interest rate. Now, there's an interest rate rule that I live by, and not everyone goes by this rule, and I use it because it's catchy and it's easy to remember, and it gives you a rough estimate of how to tell where the market is going to be in terms of what's your dollar worth with the interest rate. So in October of 2021, we got below 3%. Minus that huge dip, the rates were mostly hovering between 3.25% and 3.75% for a long period of time. Let's just call it 3.5%. When you have rates go up to 5%, and now they're up to 6%. Now they're for a 30-year purchase, we're up to 6 3/8%. When you have rates that go up, at a point, you lose 10% of your purchasing power. Well, isn't that something? We've seen about a 10% decrease, not every zip code, but across the valley in values. Isn't that interesting? So the 1%, 10% rule, if the interest rate goes down 1%, you get another 10% of purchasing power. In other words, it's made up in the cost of the home. So if our homes go down 10% so we can match the interest rates, the natural invisible hand is going to do its thing so that we curb inflation, so that we don't get in over our heads. If interest rates drop to 0% today, what would that do to the market? There would be a continual flow of money. But what would that do to inflation? It would spike it up. So we have this supply demand, we have this balance of what we need to do to curb inflation. But just remember, it's just really interesting to me to see that the 1%, 10% rule is the interest rates went up about 1.5, and we're literally about a 15% decrease in home values right now in the last year. Now, that's not the Meridian's not that way. Eagle is that way. I mean, it really depends on which zip code you look at, but it is interesting to me that the 1%, 10% rule, which is something that's cool, it's easy to remember, keep it in the back of your head. If interest rates rise at one more percent, you do lose out on your purchasing power. So, yeah. Rant's not over, but I will take a break to not a break. We'll go into the some of these stats here. Redfin, Trulia, Zillow, all those they have some good data. And one thing they can track is the list price. List price there's been 70% of all homes in the Boise Valley that have received a price cut. Very noteworthy. Very noteworthy. So when I sit here and say the market's great, the market's got its hiccups. Home sellers trying to position their home in the right price is a huge factor to this. When you list a home, and let's say you've got a blaring eyesore. Let's say you've got a pink house. Sorry if you live in a pink house, but pink's not pink's not the most popular color in houses. If you list your house at $1 million and you have a pink house, and people come to see your house, are they going to say your house is overpriced? If they come to see your house, maybe not. If you don't see showings on your house, is your house overpriced? Yes. If you don't receive offers, but you have showings on your house, is your house overpriced? Most likely, yes. Given that you have a blaring pink house. Why is that? Because buyers are coming in with the money in their hands and they have power to purchase X or below. And everything they see is a measure of value against the price. I repeat, everything they see is a measure of value, is measured against the price. Everything they see in value is measured against the price. So if that makes sense, you can take this pink house, and at some point you lower that price to $950, doesn't sell. $900 start to get shown. $850 sell. Now the home next door was $900,000. Well, someone valued that paint and the job and the aesthetic value and the emotional everything at $50,000. We don't know that until we try a few prices. But it's just good to know that everything that a home buyer sees, they're measuring it against the price. So if they don't come out and say they don't like the price, but they give you a couple of things to think about, well, they are measuring those things against the price. For that price, they did not want a pink house. For that price, they did not want linoleum countertops. For that price, they did not want an old kitchen, etc. So keep that in mind. Guys, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. I know we're on my personal page, my business page, and my YouTube channel. We are taking questions for the next half hour. So these things usually last 30 to 45 minutes. So if you have any questions, any comments, heck, I'll even take a good joke, put it in the comments, and we will get those answered and make this more interactive and more fun instead of me just talking about raw market data. So I see a handful of you on. We're going to move on. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Gene, would you put that? We talked about that quote that you screenshotted. Let's put that quote up and let's read over that. Let's talk about that for a second. All right. When we talk about is Boise going to crash, this market, this is by the Idaho Statesman. Boise is the most overvalued housing market in the U.S. for the second straight year. In the red part, if buyers paid more than expected, then that home was classified as overvalued. Okay, let's pause a second right here. Going back to my story back in June, when somebody tells me our housing market is overvalued, but then we read the article and it says the house is considered overvalued if someone paid more than they were expected. Let me take you back a year and a half. I had these home buyers named Rachel and Trent. Rachel and Trent, we had a budget about 700, I believe, and we were looking at a house that was 600. It went on the market for 600,000. We put an offer down for 650. This is in February, March of 2021. We put an offer in for 650. We put an offer in for, just like this article says, overvalued. It was over list price, more than expected. That is what? That's about 8% over the list price. So did we overpay? Did we overpay? Did we pay an exuberant amount? Are they stupid for doing that? By the time they closed, houses were already appraising for more. Now that home is worth 800,000, even after this market dip. Somewhere around 800,000. So is it overvalued? I just love these articles, these headlines. Is it overvalued? Based on their formula, heck yes, it's overvalued. Based on reality, something is overvalued if you're paying more than you want to pay. You are paying the monthly. You are living in the house. I'll fight you. I would fight you to the death. I would understand your point of view if you said, "Oh, it doesn't matter what the house is worth." It doesn't to me. It only matters what your payment is. And if they got on there at 650 and win that house, they only had to pay an extra $500, $300 a month, and they had that $300 a month, and then the market crashes the next day, or if it goes up the next day, they're still sitting fine. So let's bring that quote up again, Gene. Let's finish that quote up. The researchers then ranked the most overvalued housing market in America, 100 largest metros. That's about where Boise falls as the top 100. I think we're barely in there. Determining the premiums buyers were paying. The larger the premium, the more overpriced the market. So again, love the headlines. Thank you, Forbes, Fortune, Idaho Statesman. There's a few others. I saw it in the LA Times. Thank you. I mean, I love LA Times. Hey, don't move to Boise. That place is overvalued. Stay here in LA where we'll take 60% of your income through taxes. That's overvalued, folks. So anyway, let's go. Brian DiGiovanni. I like the raw data so we can compare it to our home market in the Phoenix area. Okay, let's dive into it. Let's pull up Ada County, Gene. Let's go to the raw data. This is good. So you can see in the Ada County stats, we had quite an increase are available for sale. So we went from 459 to 1,400-ish. I'm just going to round if that's okay. And we went, so basically an increase of about 1,000, almost a 250% increase. Is that correct? 250% increase, I think. Pending solds increased by a ton as well. They increased by about 3x, about 300%. Solds stayed pretty steady. There's where the disparity comes. Solds. So that's something that you got to be keep track of. If you have a house in the market, you're a realtor. If you're in Boise, you're a realtor. If you're somewhere else, you've got to be tracking how many people are actually buying houses, because that is a huge data point. My sellers that have today all received data that I rely heavily on the absorption rate. This absorption rate is huge. Compares how many houses are being sold, will be sold at the rate that they're being sold in the past. Median days on market, 15 to 21, not a huge difference there. Luckily, median sold price, very, very similar. It did go down about 16,000 there. And divide that by 5 or about 3%. And lowest price, 251 to 289. That's kind of a random pick. And then the highest price, 2.8 to 3.3. I mean, again, those are kind of random points. So Brian DiGiovanni, that was the Ada County area. While I'm thinking about it, I think it would be helpful to see the percentage of increases in parentheses on the sides of these things next time. If you like that idea, if you like to see like if we can see like this says pending 459 or pending 158, and then it says September 610. Would you want to see what percentage increase or decrease that is? Man, I'm getting hoarse. I'm running out here. Connie says, homes are only worth what someone willing to pay. The media loves to spend things. Oh my goodness. Amen to that, sister. I love that. Thank you, Connie. If someone's willing to pay $545, was it for your house? And then that house is worth, more now. Great. It was worth that much at that time when someone was willing to pay that. Let's go to Eagle. Eagle, we have 68 in active homes in August compared to 154, around that same increase in percentage-wise. Pendings, almost a triple. Solds, just a tad bit less. Median days on market, basically the same. Median price went up a tad. When you have 65 solds, though, that median price can do that, right? So that's not a true indicator. We only have a few. We have less numbers to work with there. Lowest price sold in Eagle, 350. That is good to see. There was a time when that was a lot higher. Highest price, 2.8, and then in the last one, it was 2.2. So that means there's a lot of homes sold between 1 million and 2 million with that data in Eagle. Not a lot sold over 2 million. Guys, keep those questions and comments coming, and wherever you're coming from, Facebook or YouTube. It's my business page or my personal page or my business YouTube channel. Love to see those comments come in. If you have any questions, we're talking about, is Boise's housing market going to crash? And my love for the media who spins these great headlines and those suckers who fall for it. Meridian, we're going to go active homes, 143 to 485. So a huge increase, over 3 times. All pending sales, we went from 64 to 73, almost a 3x. Solds 211 to 180, about the same. Median days on market, Meridian. This one went up about an increase of 50%. And then median sold price 570 to 575, basically the same. Lowest home price sold, basically the same. And the highest home price sold, way lower, but not a huge indicator. Those lowest price and highest price, I put those in there because they're kind of fun to track. I don't put those in there because they're the absolute indicator. When we look at Eagle and something jumped out to me like Eagles did for lowest price sold is at 350, I like that. But I'm not showing it. I'm not showing it so we can get a trend in the market. I'm getting it so we can see where the bottom is and where the top is over a long period of time. All right, let's go to Star. We hear the same. Brian says we hear the same headlines about Phoenix every day. It really is interesting to me. I wonder. I would love to see if the colors red and blue have anything to do with those headlines. Just curious. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but while I do love to hear the conspiracy, I don't believe them all. But I would love to know how the media is spinning these things. And call me the media if you want. Hey, throw me in there. Yeah, sure. I don't care. Let's go to Star's active data. Actives more than doubled in Star. Pendings more than tripled. Solds went down by about, what is that? 15 to 14%, somewhere in there. Median days on market, holy mackerel, that shrunk. Star, you have to remember, the solds were 37. So when we have, and Star had active homes. So they did have a time last week. They only had 8 homes go on the market. I think in last week when we pulled the 7-day data. So they had this period where nothing really hit the market. So things are going to sell. And so the median days on market is lower as well. So again, there's more than just what meets the eye. Median sold price 600 to 650-ish. Lowest price 395 to 350. 350 is that same number that showed up in Eagle. The highest price is 1.4 compared to 1.7. Very good. Very good. You know which color spins things. Oh boy. Let's go to Boise. Actually, let's go to Boise because Boise's so huge. One of the reasons I like Boise, I don't sell a lot in Boise, which is actually really interesting. I grew up in Boise, but it was Meridian School District. So my address said Boise, and Boise's good because it's a larger amount of data. So let's just take a look at the first few lines because of that. This can really give us a nice pulse of the market. Actives, that did almost tripled. Pendings, 4 to 6 times as many pendings in Boise alone. That's crazy. That's a lot. Sold's very, very similar. Median days on market went up about 50%. And then median sold price, very, very similar. Nampa's great. Caldwell's great. I want to go to Middleton. Why Middleton? Because I'm here in Middleton now, and I have a best interest in Middleton. Actives. Oh boy, is that 8x? That is 8x. Roughly an 8x in the actives. Pendings, 4 to 33. That's good. That's good. We like to see that. It's like to see the buying happening, because that is almost a 10x. That's a 8x. So we're right in line. Actives and pendings, both 8x. Solds, roughly a decrease. 16, about a 32% decrease. And then the median days on market basically went in half. And then the median sold price, very similar. Remember, when you only have 39 solds, 560, 600 is about the same number. Remember that stats class you took in high school or college? The bigger the sample data, the more that the standard deviation, right? Pulling out some real random facts. This is 2002 or so. Lowest price, very similar, and the highest price, very, very similar as well. Any other cities? I've got Cunas, I've got Nampas, I've got Caldwell's as well. If we want to go over that data as well. Any questions, guys, from you guys? We have. We're just talking about Boise's market, and is it going to crash? Let me tell you what I think would crash the market. I think what would crash the market is if somehow, some way, we have a pause on people moving from out of state to Idaho. I think Idaho is pretty well protected. You could say, I mean, what article say about how many people were moving in here? Over the course of the pandemic, 194% more people moved to Idaho than moved away. 194% people moved in. You can see that data from trucking companies. Trucking companies track some of the data. Gene, did we get any of those trucking company stats? No, we didn't. Dang it. Trucking companies track some of the same data. People are moving in to Idaho and not moving away. I mean, I know a realtor that moved to Oregon. I was like, this is so weird because people are moving here, right? Good place to live. 194% moved in, then moved out. Boise has attracted remote workers, 100%. I've seen that all over. I've seen the fire and police move in. We have seen a huge disparity in what the inventory was allowing. Now, once the interest rates hit, in my opinion, this is what happens. Let's just talk in generalities. What happens when interest rates increase? What happens when interest rates increase? People sit and pause. They'll look at the market and they sit there. They don't necessarily jump one way or the other. They just kind of analyze. And after a few weeks, if the interest rates are stable, buyers get back in the game. Now, what happens when the interest rates jump more than a point in that fast, which is what happened? And then they've kind of bounced around and done this number, right? And we just saw another hike. What happens? Buyers get scared. Cash buyers love it. Cash buyers have more power, right? I've got someone moving here from Austin right now. Cash buyer. He's loving this. He asks me all the time, how am I looking? Well, you're looking great. You got cash. So with cash, you got sellers who are needing to sell. You got sellers who are showing their tolerance for the market or their non-tolerance for the market, and they need to get cash for their property, and not everyone's desperate, right? There's some people who list, they're just patient, and they might be patient to a fault, might be patient to they're good, but just keep that in mind. The market can make people pause, and so after you pause, and after we're done pausing there, buyers happening in. I've got a handful. I'm not necessarily need to name how many buyers I have circling now, but I have a few that are going to buy in it, and more than that are just waiting, and they're fine. They're going to wait it out. They're going to be fine. We heard a similar stat that 117 people moved to the Phoenix Valley every day. Crazy stuff. I think I already touched on the fact that how many price decreases there were on the listing prices in Boise. Great stat. Pay attention to that. Just because you decrease your price of your home doesn't necessarily mean anything. And just because you hold on to it doesn't necessarily mean anything. If you hold your price, it doesn't necessarily mean that your price is right. It doesn't necessarily mean the price is wrong. If you decrease your price every day, and you're going to attract buyers, and the invisible hand typically does not lie. Any other questions or comments? Maybe you've heard some crazy things. Maybe you want something refuted. Maybe you want to argue with me with my huge pointer that I might bring out, and that is the price of your home and the how much you like your home, because those two are the only things that really matter to me. Connie says 50% of my neighbors moved here from California, Oregon, or Washington in the past 2 years. Crazy stuff. Doesn't surprise me in the slightest. And I would say depending on which neighborhood or which part of town they move to, usually determines what type of out of stater they are. Am I wrong? Maybe I am. Quick story, and if no one else comments, we're gonna hop off. Quick story. So I have a new buyer. They have a max budget of $200,000. They have a max budget of $200,000, and this is the person you feel for, right? They have gone through some hard times in life. They've had a bankruptcy, and they've had some things that have made their max pre-approval just a little bit lower than they want, but they're still trucking on. He really wants to get equity in the house, and he just said, "Man, I just don't know if this is the right time to buy." What do you think I told him? I didn't tell him anything. I asked him the question: if you like the house, you like your payment, and then especially because he's trying to rent out his house afterwards, if you like that, then would you rather get in the market now or later? And he's like, "Let's go now." And he's a first-time buyer because he is, after bankruptcy and divorce, that he's now starting with zero equity. He's basically starting at zero. It's sad. You wish that he could get more of the house. I mean, you truly do. I mean, don't we all think that? Whether you're a capitalist pig or whether you're a socialist other way, like you truly do feel for that guy. But he's like all in. He wants to get his house. He wants to collect equity. He wants to have a rental. He has a long-term goal for his income, and that's where he wants to be. And that's like hats off for that guy, right? That's the guy you want to help. He's wanting to help himself. Who's there? If and when I move, it'll still be on the West Coast. I am not a fan of the East Coast. Born and raised in California. Okay, does Idaho count as coast? That's what I want to know. Are you gonna end up in California, Oregon, or Washington? Time will tell. Well, so if you we moved from Idaho, we moved to Arizona from Colorado because the West Coasters changing Colorado. What's the chance that happens to Boise? Is it changing already? Yeah, I would say it really depends on what neighborhood you move to. I love the neighborhood I moved into now. Very low HOA. If somebody gets uptight, we actually keep a very prim and proper house. I say that, but guess what? Our scooters from our kids are left out at nights. Chalks on the front driveway from our kids being kids. Our kids wander the streets and ride back and forth. And we have like-minded families around us. Where we moved from, legacy, prim and proper, people paying $2,000 a year for HOA. I would say there are more uptight people there, more retirees there, and nothing bad, nothing wrong with that at all. So is it changing? Sure, it's changing. Now, I would argue nothing ever stays the same. It's always going up or down. But I would say, for the most part, everyone is moving here because of the way of life. I have seen some really politically active people move here because they don't want this to turn into what they left. And they might be more uptight about what the HOA says, but overall, I feel like they are a benefit to the community. And I say that with all sincerity. I take all these people around, and it is very much the same sentiment I get from people over and over and over and over again. So, does that make sense? If that makes sense, let's get your favorite emoji in the chat, whether you're on Facebook, my business page, my personal page, or YouTube. And yeah. So, is Boise's market going to crash? Guys, believe what you want to believe. Look at the data. Is there more supply than demand right now? Yes, there is. Are people still moving here from out of state that work remote? Yes, they are. Is Boise still the attractive place because of where we are aligned with our values? Heck yes, it is. And that's what people are moving here for. They're not moving here because of it's cheaper than what it used to be. They're moving here because they want to be here at a place that they can raise their kids. 100%, just like Brian says here. That's what they want for their kids. Honestly, it's a dream come true. My wife and I were sitting out on the front lawn. We don't have back lawn in our new house here, and we just think it's a dream. You know, there's open spaces, there's good people, smelling farms each night as opposed to, you know, hearing your neighbors getting too close. And we love it. We love the acreage. We love the land. We love the people. We've moved from somewhere great. We loved Eagle. We love where we're at right now in Middleton. And is the market going to crash? My succinct answer is watch this thing on replay. Because I really think the answer is deep, but I think there's a few factors that go into it. Interest rates, supply and demand, inflation, and the latest from out-of-state rulers, because we have seen when there's mandates and things that people call and move here that fast. I'm not kidding you. 1%, 10% rule. Review that. If you missed that, go watch some of this again. I think interest rates and the housing market operate very symbiotically? Is that the word? Inversely. When one goes up, one goes down. And so if you're looking at the 1%, 10% rule with the interest rates, I think that will play a huge part in what you are trying to do and trying to buy. If you are buying and selling in the same market, it's all good. And if the market crashes and you like your payment and you like your house, does it matter? Watch the video to see my take on that as well. Guys, it's been real. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, any comments, or you plan on moving here, guys, my number is at the bottom of the screen, 208-213-2092. Text or call. And if it's, you can always email me, brian@brianhymas.com. And if you are just kind of wanting the Brian Hymas easy 1, 2, 3 process, you can go to brianhymas.com/buy. That has a lot of great information. It has a good 5 or 6 videos that you can watch to kind of get your head around the whole buying process, especially for the first timers, who that helps quite a bit. So that's brianhymas.com/buy. Guys, who's there? Brian DiGiovanni, Connie, thank you for attending. If you subscribe, you obviously get the content right when it gets out, so hit that bell after you click subscribe, and we will catch you on the next one. The next live, what's happening? It's happening in, let's see, 2 weeks. On Tuesday at 12 o'clock Pacific time, we'll be tackling a new topic. And hopefully we're gonna have a guest on there. So stay tuned for that, and we will see that next October 4th, 2022, 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's 12 noon Pacific. And catch you guys next time. Fight on, and see you guys up in Idaho.